What's up, guys? This is Mike Parker at the Center for OCD and Anxiety in Pittsburgh, PA, and this is OCD Space, where we talk about all things OCD. So if any of you out there ever have a topic you want me to cover in the future, be sure to leave that in the comments below, and I'll try to make a video about that at some point. Now, what do I have for you today? Well, we're going to be talking about compulsions, and in particular, I got a hot take for you all today. Your compulsions make sense. Yes, they do. Now, that's going to be a new opinion for many of you out there, a new take, but I absolutely believe this to be the case, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute with one caveat. Now, guys, if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe below. That really helps out our channel, and let's get started. Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about compulsions, and we're going to be talking about how your compulsions are actually rational and reasonable responses to an event that you think is actually happening. And what I mean by that is that if your OCD belief, if that story you have in your head about what is happening is actually true, then all those excessive behaviors you're doing make perfect sense, and anybody in that situation would be doing something very similar. And so, for example, let's just say I told anybody on the street, anybody that came into my office, OCD or not, that, hey guys, someone was just in my office and they're actually HIV positive and they got a cut and they started bleeding all over the place, and I think they got most of it cleaned up, but you know, they did touch that doorknob. We tried to get most of the blood off that doorknob. I didn't try that hard, but hopefully it's all off. What's going to happen with anybody who just hears that story? They're going to, you know, grab a tissue or a part of their shirt or something to create a barrier if they touch that doorknob, first of all. And then probably even after using that barrier, they're probably, just to make sure, going to go into the bathroom and wash their hands, right? Because they were given information that actually, suggests a reasonable response like that. And what's happening with you with your OCD is you're doing these responses to a situation that you truly believe is happening. And so it's not the behavior that's the problem. It's actually the situation, how you figured out or how you convinced yourself into believing this situation is happening. And so let's talk about, why some of the responses make sense. Let's look at some of these different obsessions people might fall into, right? Let's just say you've got more of a social obsession. You think people just think the absolute worst of you. They think you're incompetent. They think you're foolish. So you walk around just feeling ashamed of yourself because you're believing the story about yourself. Of course, you're going to be constantly checking your behavior to make sure you're doing the right things. Of course, you're going to be checking, does my voice sound right? Am I being respectful to everybody? Am I not making any offensive jokes? And you're going to be just nonstop worrying about that if it is actually true that people think these things about you, right? Which would just be an awful situation that nobody would want to be in. But when you have OCD and that's your obsession, you truly believe that this is the case. You truly believe that people are thinking these awful things about you. It's not just like, maybe, I don't know. It's like, no, I actually really believe this, and it's at an extreme intensity. Like, not only people just find me annoying, but they just absolutely are disgusted or disdain me, right? And that's, how an OCD obsession works. You believe it, and it's very extreme. And so if that extreme situation was true, your extreme behavior makes sense, and anybody would be doing the same thing, right? We could even talk about contamination obsessions, right? If you are convinced that there are dangerous germs that can hurt or kill you all over your home, of course you're going to be washing your hands more. Of course you're going to be not touching things. or a different form of contamination where there's just something gross on things, that you're believing is on there. It's going to make sense to want to wash that gross thing off of you. Anybody who were to walk out of the bathroom and look at their hand and see some brown stuff on there is going to be like, that's gross. Let me go back in and wash my hands immediately, right? That's how anybody's going to behave in that situation. Of course, when you have OCD, it's a belief. You're not seeing it on your hands, but you truly do believe it's there, and you truly do feel just as disgusted. And we could talk about other obsessions as well, right? People that believe that they are one of those peed people. I'm not going to say the word because YouTube likes to, strike against you for using certain words. But anyone who's one of those pedo people, one of those monsters. When you have OCD, sometimes that can become your obsession. I think I'm one of these horrible people, and these are the sort of people that even prisoners hate and kill in prison. Not to mention the larger society, how everybody feels about these people. They are literally the lowest of the low, and I actually believe I might be one of these people. Oh my God! Like, who wouldn't just freak out about a situation like that, right? Who wouldn't start asking for reassurance? Who wouldn't start making sure they don't go near children or look at children in any way? And who wouldn't stop checking themselves to make sure they're not aroused or attracted, or all those compulsive behaviors that you do when you have that obsession? And so guys, that's my point today, is we're used to thinking about your repetitive compulsions as the problem, right? Why are you doing this behavior? It doesn't make any sense. But maybe it's time to flip that a little bit. Maybe it's time to say, your behavior makes perfect sense. I'd be doing the same exact thing if I believe that. What you believe is truly horrible. And that's universal. Anybody would feel that this situation is horrible if they were also believing it, okay? And so what that means is, if the compulsions aren't the problem must be that you believe that this situation is happening, that you believe this situation is true. That's actually the problem. And so one of the most important things to do when you are working on your OCD, when you are working on getting better and getting your life back, is figuring out how you convinced yourself and continue to convince yourself that this situation is true. How did you come to believe that your house is contaminated? How did you come to believe that you're one of these awful monsters walking around the streets? How did you come to believe that you're an incompetent person? How did you come to believe that you're someone who's likely going to kill themselves if they're around a knife? How did you come to believe you're likely someone that's going to hurt other people if you're around a sharp object? How you did that was using some faulty OCD reasoning that made you believe that this is the case. And so it's really important, as you're doing therapy, you're doing, exposures as part of therapy. You're looking at maybe some acceptance with this, with an ACT approach, and learning to get used to certain feelings and accept your thoughts. And then you also want to address that other piece, which is, what kind of reasoning did I use to even convince myself of this? Did I completely detach myself from my senses? And did I figure all of this out in my imagination? If you have OCD and you have an OCD obsession, the answer to that is yes. Yes, you figured all of this out in your imagination, and you didn't use enough reality. You stopped trusting reality, and you came up with a story, right? To put it simply, you made stuff up, and now you're living with a made-up story, and that's what happens with OCD. So that's all I'm going to talk about today, guys. Just, food for thought, realizing your behavior makes sense if the scenario you're scared of is true. So let's try looking at that scenario that you believe is true and feels so real, and let's figure out how to slowly chip away at that and slowly realize I came up with this story, and let's start introducing reality back into that equation. Let's start trusting your senses, trusting what other people are telling you, trusting information you're getting. All right? All right, guys, I hope this was helpful. Until next time, don't forget, trust yourselves.